Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to use the media I made in a previous video to see if we can actually get some orchid seeds to germinate.
Subscribing might not be worth it, but it's also not optional, so just do it.
And I have a little seed pod here. This was sent to me by Lee from DLQ. I'll link his channel here and also below in the description. And he is actually on the everlasting quest of finding Princess Jackie, which is a white bifoliate cattleya that MissOrchidGirl grows. Unfortunately, she doesn't know the ID of this plant. The only thing that everyone has to go off of is it's white, it's bifoliate, it looks a little bit like an intermedia, and it has apparently a spectacular, very complex fragrance. And so Lee is really interested in finding a plant like this, and so one of the purchases he made was just a eBay white, no-name bifoliate white cattleya, and it came with a seed pot. And so I was like, oh my god, can you please send this to me, because I'm super curious to see if I can actually grow orchid seeds my own. It's a super long intro, I know, but in a video before, linked here, I made the media, and today I'll try to do some DIY at home sterile culture technique. If you've watched the previous video, you already know. If not, I'll just quickly recap. Orchid seeds do not come with an endosperm, and the endosperm is the part of the seed that humans use for nutritional value. If you think of like starch in grains, if you think of protein in beans or fats in sunflower seeds, for example, these are all ways the parent plant basically packages a lunchbox for its offspring so they have energy to use for germination. Orchids do not do that. They actually rely on symbiosis with mycorrhizal fungi. So there it's kind of a bargain where the fungus initially supplies some nutrients to the seed so it can start, sprout, germinate, have green leaves to photosynthesize, and then basically the plant starts giving back some nutrients as well. So this is very fascinating, but it's very complicated as well. Therefore, it's maybe not so convenient to replicate that in like a professional growing space, let alone in like a home setting as for me here. Therefore, what people usually use is kind of agar media, which contains all of the necessary nutrients for the plants to germinate. And this is kind of what we made last time. So this is the media we have. So it used to be a powder like this. And then after boiling it up in water and sterilizing it, we have now this, which is set up agar in a little glass jar. This is actually going to be used now to seed the orchid seeds into. And I've been thinking about how to generate kind of a sterile work environment in my home. And because at work I usually use like biosafety cabinets which contain air filters to remove any microbes, and so you have a constant flow of air that provides a sterile work environment. But those cost several €1,000 and it's not really an investment I want to make. So I was thinking, what can I do? I was like, yes, bunsen burner. And you might think now, Jesus Christ, where you get a bunsen burner? And this is actually not super uncommon. People use them also as a camping stove. So I would like to introduce to you my bunsen burner. This is my bunsen burner. I got this as a teenager actually, because as any normal teenager, I was really into sciences. Basically what I did was I just tried to synthesize some different metal salts, and I was particularly interested in copper acetate. Don't ask me why, it's just what I wanted to do. And so for that I needed the bunsen burner. And so while other teenagers figured out how to get access to cigarettes even though they're too young to smoke, or how to get into clubs and cover up their alcohol breath, I sat at home and synthesized copper acetate.
Super fucking live, isn't it?
And now basically I can take the bunsen burner that I used for my hobby as a teenager and use it for my hobby nowadays. And basically the idea of a Bunsen burner is we have a flame which heats up the air. As the air heats up, the air molecules start to move faster and they need more space. So the air expands, thereby kind of the density decreases, so it rises up. Now you basically have air drafts coming in from the side to replace the air that has been raised up by the heat. This way you kind of prevent microbes from falling down, and you generate kind of a somewhat sterile work environment around the burner. This does not work like in a big distance. You have to keep kind of close to the flame and work quickly, and still kind of try to cover everything up to prevent any danger of contamination. And then on top of that, I want to kind of sanitize the work environment. And I guess ever since the pandemic, we all know we can use ethanol to clean environments or like surfaces and so on. At work, I would typically use like a 70% ethanol to spray everything. That basically leads to membranes and other structures of the microorganisms to be damaged, and so they basically die and dry out. I just got some, so it's called Brennspiritus in German. This is just like a cleaning agent. Also, sometimes people use it for lighting fires. This is kind of 100% concentration, so I have to dilute this down. Let's see if I can actually manage to keep this clean. And so basically the plan is I clean the seed pod, I cut it open with a razor blade, and then try to scrape seeds into like the little bit of condensation or like condensed water. I hope you can see that in the image here. Basically, I hope I can drop the seed in there, kind of scrape it off, put it in there so I can kind of spread it on top of the agar. I kind of have to sterilize more water, and I have to figure out a way to kind of dispense the water in a sterile way without having like professional pipettes. But let's see, I hope it works this way, and I hope there won't be too many, contaminations. First of all, I'm very happy with the seal on the jars because, as you can hear, the lid doesn't move. There is some kind of level of vacuum that's been produced in these jars, so that's always a good thing. And yeah, so I guess here goes nothing, huh? As I said, first things first, I want to make some sanitizer, and for that, I'm probably gonna make like a 75% ethanol, just because 70 is kind of difficult to make in a jar like that. And so the idea is I'm going to fill spirit in here, the surgical spirit, and then I'll just fill it up to 200 ml with this distilled water, and that should be fine for spraying and sanitizing and everything if I can actually open this godforsaken bottle. So already I can tell you this is wrong. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. I actually don't drink any alcohol. I never tried, not even interested in trying. The scent of this it's intense. I don't think this is just ethanol. I would say there is also some other kind of denaturing agent in there so people don't drink it. And now I'll just fill it up to 200 ml because 150 ml of 100% ethanol in 200 ml gives 75%. You can see there is some bubbling happening. It's just air escaping the mixture. And then I want to fill it into a little spray bottle, which I bought for this purpose. So I can spray the ethanol and make sure that everything is nice and clean. Oh, and by the way, these kind of glass beakers, you can buy them online. I got mine from a local store, which kind of sells supplies to DIY skincare and other things. So yeah, that's where I got my beakers from. Obviously I didn't take them from work because that would literally be theft. Get everything well and equally combined. And I'm just gonna spray down this seed pod now. Maybe what I could do is already remove the parts I don't think I'll need. Oof, yeah, this smell actually brings back memories because as a kid, I also used to have like these little chemistry sets. They always had, instead of a Bunsen burner, which would be too dangerous for children. I'm not sure if that's actually true. They actually had like a little alcohol flame that you can use to heat things. And it's the same alcohol that was used in here, like same denaturing agent. This is really a nostalgic scent for me. It brings me back to my childhood. What a nerd. Okay, so now the idea is I have a little razor blade. This is what they look like. They were actually kind of difficult to find because drugstores nowadays don't really carry them because they're like, sir, nowadays people have a beard. And I'm like, yeah, duh, obviously I have one too, Gorge. Anyway, so I hope I can actually show this properly in this. This is the first time I'm filming with two cameras, so I'm just trying to, ooh, this is sharp, cut off the little stems and the rest of the column, I guess this is, and just have it sit in the alcohol a little more. So all the nasty germs on the surface of this actually can be disposed of. And I have these little tweezers here that I'm going to use to just move it around, get a nice and even layer of ethanol on here. Okay, now, so obviously this ethanol is highly flammable, so you have to be careful and keep it away from the flame because fire. I'm going to spray my hands. Probably would be nicer to wear gloves, but I didn't want to buy any. I didn't have any. Throughout the pandemic, it's still a little difficult to find them at some places. I know ethanol is horrible for your skin. You shouldn't use it. I'm just kind of spraying it now to kind of quickly clean up my hands roughly. I'm trying to do all of the next steps without touching the actual seeds because I only care about keeping the media and the seeds sterile. The rest I don't care. So that means if I scrape the seeds off with this side of the blade, I'm not actually touching them. I can just try to maneuver them into the media, hopefully. I also have some tissue papers here. This is obviously recycling tissue because we respect the planet on this channel. If you don't use recycling tissues, I will definitely judge you heavily because gorge. Like, don't you know that literally the rainforest is dying for these godforsaken tissue papers that you can wipe your bum bum with? Which is, by the way, in Portuguese means butt. Awful. Just cleaned off the surface here to keep them somewhat sanitary. And now let me just start the Bunsen burner. So we have a really nice flame here. And as I said, this now sucks in air and generates a somewhat sterile work area around it. Like, I'm not going to treat this like my research project at work because I just can't. Like, I will not be able to maintain this level of sterility in my home environment, and I also don't want to. Like, if there's contamination in there, whatever. Like, we'll figure it out, we'll deal with it. And yeah, maybe also to prevent soot formation and to keep the fire alarm from going off, I'll just switch to the colorless flame. Now there's just more air and there's more of a complete burn, I guess. It's also much hotter than the one we just had previously. Okay, and now here goes nothing. I'm just going to open the media here, this little media container. And hopefully we hear a little plop, because that means it's definitely sterile. I want to have kind of two clean work surfaces to deal with. So I'm going to clean this as well. Just wipe it with the ethanol so we have a clean work surface. Then I'm just going to draw this through the flame to remove the ethanol and really sterilize it. Now I have to be careful that my tweezers are actually not on fire before I go into the ethanol back, because that's going to be a very hot mess, literally. So I don't see any fires, should be fine. And now we're just going to pass the seed pod through the flame as well to remove any excess ethanol, which I would assume is going to harm the seeds. So both of these lids are actually clean work surfaces because we wiped them with ethanol. Now the idea is I have the seed pod, and with the flame running, I'm going to take my clean blade, and I feel like it's going to be very, very difficult to do this without completely obscuring the light, at least for a bit. Just going to do a cut through the middle here. Probably getting a scalpel would have been better because this is definitely a little dangereux, which is French, it means dangerous. I can definitely cut myself very easily. And there you go, we have the seed exposed here, and I already dropped 1/2. That's a little unfortunate. This is now not sterile anymore. But there you go, this is kind of what we're working with. This is the seed pod with the seeds exposed. Doesn't it look juicy and delicious? Like, I would so eat this right now. And there's a lot of seed in there. We'll have lots of chances to get something good out of this. I'm just cleaning off the blade now. Just quickly passing it through the flame again. Removing the ethanol. I hope you could see how it just kind of evaporates very quickly. Then I'll just maneuver it to the side here so I can just easily pick it up and maybe scrape off some of the seed. I hope this is actually going to be visible on camera. This is a really awkward angle. So I'm just trying to scoop up some seed here. Move the pod to our out of the clean work surface. Now take the lid off here and be very, very careful not to open it too much and just tap the seed in. I do not want to breathe on top of the media because that would be, that's how you introduce a lot of contamination, because breath is dirty. And so now we have like a little kind of mound of seeds in here, and I hope I can get them dispersed in the water, which might not be so simple because they're probably a little hydrophobic at this point. Oh, that was, oops, a little rough. I guess, so yeah, I guess the agar concentration in this is not super high. Yeah, I don't know. What can we see? It has not dispersed at all. So that's a bit unfortunate. So we just have like a chunk of seeds there. Ugh. But anyways, this is now our first jar. So I guess the seeds are a little too hydrophobic, and what that means is they are just water repellent at this point. I guess I could add some form of a surfactant to make the seeds disperse better. But the only thing I have right now would be dish soap or shower gel, none of which would actually be sterile. So I'm kind of hoping I can just try again and maybe scrape off the seeds and have them just kind of snow into the media. So again, let's just open the jar and hope for a nice plop. Nice plop, yes. And so now the idea would be to take off the lid, even though I told you you should minimize that, and try to scrape some of the seed into the media. So let's see if I can manage that. I'll just put it next to the jar. Hopefully it's going to stay. I'm trying not to reach over it too much. Anyone who's worked in a lab environment before is probably going to look at this and scream at me being like, Jesus motherfucking Christ, Gorge, what are you doing? But yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. You can see actually, which I find kind of interesting, that the cuts are already oxidizing a little bit. Very, very fascinating. Okay, so I'll just take this and just see if I can sprinkle some of the seed in here, but I guess it's always coming off as little chunks. But maybe I get some single seeds in there. This is for sure not nearly as sterile as I did for the other one, but I can see some single or smaller particles at least coming off. There you go. So now we have multiple chunks of seeds in here. They're sitting on top of the water, so let's see if we can work with this. Okay, so these are the two jars we have right now. The first trial, which is just a little destroyed, and now we have the second one, which looks like this. We have several potential colonies of seedlings to grow up, but I guess also you kind of expect to have to separate them at a later point. So let's see how we're going to deal with this. Yeah, now at the end of working with the Bunsen burner, I'm just going to switch back to the colored flame. This is for safety reasons, because next time I switch it on, I'll be able to see this flame and not reach into like a 1,000-degree hot flame and burn myself severely. I could try to get some more seedlings out of this for now, but I feel like we've already, with the 2 jars we have right now, I just want to see if it works at all. I have a second seed pod that he sent me. This is just the first one that I cut open. Let's see how they develop over the next few days, weeks, months and years. So for an immediate update, stick around and I'll see you later.